Hello, this is Dr. Garrett Castleberry, Program Director for Communication, Media, and Ethics here at Mid-America Christian University. I am here with our Week 3 video discussion question, and this week we are going to step it up a little bit and challenge you all to put together a bit of a more compound response to our question in general. And this week our readings are some of my favorite. We will have all course long dealing with the area of semiotics for the most part, in addition to some other methods or analytical tools we use. And semiotics can, in roughest terms, be described as the study of signs and symbols. And so while we're not all archaeological professors out on, digging up dinosaur bones or something like that, we do a lot of our media interpretations, even as lay audiences, by studying signs and symbols in our everyday lives. And so it's something to think about, something we can all relate to, and now we're putting some language to it, some critical thinking ideas and concepts that help us better process that. Because studying an area like semiotics is going to give us insights into how media culture produces social influence, all right? And so here is our discussion prompt, all right? I'm going to provide the question, I'm going to play with it a little bit, and then in my own response, and then I will reiterate it for you all, and as always, looking forward to your responses. So, in thinking about semiotics, the study of signs and symbols, and how they communicate messages to us, our third video discussion question is, name one of the most influential pieces of media you consumed growing up, okay? What was one of the most influential pieces of media you consumed growing up? Perhaps a favorite movie, television series, cartoon, maybe it was a book or book series. You can take it in a number of directions so long as it's a form of media. It's mediated across, in a mass communication kind of way, across many channels, or is perhaps consumable across a mediated channel of some sort, and something that left an impact on you, all right? So, first thing, name an influential cultural artifact or text. Second, articulate why it left an impact on you. Impact mentally, emotionally, right? Somehow, some way it stirred you. And so articulate why it left an impact on you mentally or emotionally. Third, speculate how. Speculate how it might have influenced your social outlook. So and this is speculation, we're not looking for concrete evidence. We're not claiming to solve some ultimate riddle here, but we're playing that game of criticism. We're playing the game of speculation. So how might that text have influenced your social outlook as a child? And then now we're keeping in mind some of the things we've already read about this course and how media does impact us at an early age, right? This is what we call media effects. It's impressionable on us as youth, all right? And so, I'll speculate how so for you. And then finally, what are some of the signs and symbols this text used to communicate its message, all right? So spell out some of those signs and symbols, the semiotics of that text, if you will, and how it influenced you, all right? So, very dense. This is a four-part question. And so this is going to, practice a little bit. Take your notes down. Make sure you can articulate yourself. We are looking for an increase this week in our time of response. I think we've been aiming for about somewhere in that neighborhood of 45 seconds to a minute and a half. Let's look at around a 3 to 4 minute response. If you can generate that, I think if you're tackling all 4 aspects of the prompt, you should have no problem. But I'm going to go over it one more time, okay? So here are a four-part discussion question for week 3. First, name one of the most influential pieces of media you consumed growing up. Articulate why it left an impact on you, mentally, emotionally, so on. Articulate that. Third, speculate how it might have influenced your social outlook. So, can you speculate the kind of social influence it produced in you? And finally, what are some signs and symbols that this text used to communicate its message? All right? Okay, that's our sample text. I was playing with some ideas in my head. I could go in a number of directions, but the one I landed on speaks to a recent experience I had. And when I was growing up, one of the first R-rated films that I ever saw, I say like you can only experience like that for a first time once. So really, the first R-rated feature that I was exposed to was Terminator 2: Judgment Day. I don't know why I'm lowering my voice here. Is that like it's getting serious now? We're talking about something serious. But this was the first sort of mature movie I saw as somewhat of a younger person, right? Definitely grade school time of life. And this was I can look back, and this clearly left a strong social influence, cultural influence. I mean, this was a text that impacted me. And so there's a number of ways I could take that and think about it. You know, first of all, it introduced me to a more mature genre, right? And in fact, T2, right, is a admixture of genres. It's combining the action film with the science fiction film. And so we can think about the sort of the conventions of each of those genres and how they participate in the storytelling mode. Both of them play a heavy role in how this narrative unfolds. Okay, and so long before I knew anything about narrative or genre conventions or whatever, this was a hook that certainly told me that, hey, the action film can be a very serious and dark thing with this science fiction genre combined, and you need to pay attention, right? But what are some other things? What are some other signs and symbols that this text used? It had a tone that I might describe as a tone of dread, right? And it sort of functions quasi horror in that aspect, and so a very dark, very serious, sinister tone to the movie. Some signs and symbols that the film uses include a lot of guns, right? Gunplay. It's an action movie, but also there's something about the tenor of bringing in those kinds of firearms, right, as a habitual mode of repetition that definitely it created, it socially influenced sort of the kinds of ways me and my friends would, play after school, and the kind of serious manner in which our play would mimic maybe that, as we're like running around the alleys with dart guns or whatever. And so I can think back to that kind of social influence. We also became action movie junkies, in essence, in like junior high. I mean, we were all about it, and probably catching some of those that were that skewed older for what we should have been maybe taking in at that age. The film sound. There is like this screeching metallic sound to that movie throughout its score, and so it's not just the musical score, although it blends with the musical score at times, but sometimes it's the sound effects, the sound editing, and it just creates this otherworldly impression of this looming dread of the future, right? With and I didn't preface the film. I just assume we all at least know it, kind of ingrained in whether we've actually seen it or not. But Terminator 2, of course, features the two machine killers traveling back in time for discrete purposes, and then the attempt to thwart them. It's a cat and mouse kind of movie. Anyway. The movie definitely says something about masculinity, and I don't know, I wasn't throwing around grad school terms like, what kind of brand of masculinity does this, film utilize when I was a young child? But definitely, there's a heavy masculine presence to the film, and yet there are other themes of a sort of alienation, right? There are themes of parenthood and motherhood and childhood, all wrapped up in this sort of sci-fi shoot 'em up. And that's interesting, the way that those symbols, those themes are embedded, we might even call it encoded, into this particular text. The film certainly has a lot to say about technology, and there's definitely a reading that technology is something to be feared. There is an anxiety, a general anxiety about this movie. It's also a Hollywood spectacle, right? It's a blockbuster. It was the first film to officially cost $100 million to produce, which is, kind of that conservative amount of money now for a typical maybe summer film or something like that. Another term I definitely couldn't use as a child would say what? But our authors, to tie it to Berger's Media and Society book, in his reading for this week, this term postmodernism, as if to say it's a topic, a theme, a set of rules that are beyond the modern, that are kind of fragmented, that again, like the genre mixing itself, it's mixing ideas, it's mixing concepts for our pleasure, and so it does a lot of that unique work. And then also maybe, what did it teach me about alienation, right? Feeling isolated, all of these loner figures running around all the time. Or maybe what kind of message does it have about resistance, right? I think as a child, it's really easy to go along with these kinds of narratives and feel like, that it makes total sense. Why don't they just let her out of this asylum, right? Or, yeah, they should totally blow up this building. It's got that bad computer in it. But I recently went to watch a screening of the restored, digitally remastered 4K resolution of Terminator 2 Judgment Day, in 3D no less, and it was beautiful. It was beautiful. The film, the look of the film, the update, phenomenal. But I could not help but have both a retro nostalgia feeling that I was self-aware of while watching, but then the further the movie went along and the darker the plot twists went, I started to read this text in a whole new way that was giving me anxieties for the present. And it made me very mindful of, how else did that movie influence others? And I think about some of our cultural anxieties at the time, or the way there are certain pockets of people that are really into these themes of isolation. They feel alienated, whether in this country or other parts of the world, or this idea of like doomsday prepping. This whole phenomenon in recent years, this idea of a countdown, this idea of technology getting faster than us. This movie feels so resonant today, and I cannot help but think about the social influence this particular brand of media culture produced. So that is my story on Terminator 2 Judgment Day in response to Video Discussion 3. All right, so now it's your job to come up with your own text, right? Articulate why it left an impact on you, speculate how it may have influenced you, what are the signs and symbols it uses to convey its message. All right, I look forward to your responses.